Interesting development here in Israel. The Israel Defense Forces announced yesterday that it would begin to draft female recruits to the military's most elite commando unit, called Sayeret Matkal, often known simply as the unit. Now, it's as storied as they come in the annals of the Israeli military. And this latest initiative, it's all part of a wider pilot program aimed at opening more combat roles to female fighters. Now, the latest opening for Matkal will begin at the end of 2024. For more on this subject, we're joined by IDF Reserve Lieutenant Colonel Avital Leibovich, a former IDF spokesperson and currently director of the AJC in Jerusalem. So good to have you back on the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We've seen, well, first I want to bring up an aspect of this that I was reading, that the High Court, to remind our viewers, ruled in June that the IDF was compelled, essentially, to explain why it didn't open more units to women. It appears this may be the Army's response, more openings. Does the court deserve some credit in this case? I mean, this is an entity so in focus right now. Or are we looking at Army leaders who are really pushing this issue forward on their own?
Yeah, so you really hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's a positive aspect here, no doubt, and that is that the Army is willing to open combat positions in an elite unit, which was not done in the past. But the more negative part of it is that the court basically forced the Army to go this way. And actually, when we look at the IDF's history, when women were not permitted to go to pilot's course, for example, this also came after an appeal to court by a young woman by the name of Alice Miller. So that was something like 30 years ago or 25 years ago. And fast forward to 2023, we're still in a position in which the Army still needs to get some sort of an incentive or push from the court in order to make this progress. But having said all of that, we need to look at the positivities, and that is that more than 90% positions in the Army are opened for women. And I'm talking about thousands of different positions in all the corps in the military. So that is something definitely to be proud of.
And I want to reiterate, there's institutional knowledge here. I mean, look, in this country, friends of mine, their grandmothers fought in the Palmach. I mean, there's a real history around this on the front lines. And today, just in recent years, there's been really good, case scenarios of the mixed gender units, I think primarily these combat units, who have had really successful operational activity going on, stopping attacks, etc. Look, at the same time, look, these units have extreme mental and physical screening, trials that cut the vast majority, of people getting in. What do we know about how that process will it be altered at all? Are they trying to figure that out at this point?
Yeah, usually there's a system which actually focuses on the capabilities of the women and then creates this kind of adaptations on different levels. I mean, we don't have to go so far to the Army. Look at the Olympics, for example. If you look at the athletes which are women and athletes which are men, there are also differences between them. So although we're talking about the military in a totally different kind of field, still there are differences, and the Army knows and can actually make those adjustments in order to really enjoy the wonderful benefit and the wonderful power of the women. And we've seen the women contribute to the IDF on all units, most of the units, for many years, for decades, and you can't really, say that this has not been a valuable.
I'm taking it a step further. I mean, the Army's even determined that women are better than men for some key jobs. I mean, already recognized as like the observation units, which I believe only allow women in based on clinically proven abilities of focusing on screens and paying attention to things in the environment. Look, is this integration move? Is it being approached scientifically, or do you feel this is really kind of a cultural pressure and push to be more inclusive?
I think, first of all, it's 2023, and women should be integrated in all spheres of life. So that's the cultural part, if you will. The second issue is that the Army in Israel, although there's still criticism about this, the Army is still very much a people's army. For example, it teaches Hebrew, newcomers, new immigrants, and that's not the role of the Army, but yet it does that. For example, it also gives another chance to those who haven't graduated from high school. So it still has a lot of added values, and into this added value, you can also pour the value of the equality between men and women. So I would say it's a combination between the era we're living in, the values, and the Army being the people's army.
And just one last point on this. I mean, looking at the crystal ball here on this issue, but you think that we're going to see more of this in terms of more units opening up? You mentioned that 90-some% already opened. Will it reach 100% at some point soon?
I think it will reach very close to 100% in the near future. I think it has to do with development of technologies and the ability to include women in those technologies. But until that happens, I would like really to see the first female chief of staff of the Army before we see more inclusion of women in other units.
Fascinating concept. Of course, we'll keep our eye on that and all these developments very closely. We appreciate you being with us on this. Again, Avital Leibovich, thanks for joining.